Ethan Cole stood at the edge of the landing ramp, his boots pressing against the smooth silver surface of the alien dock. Before him stretched the great capital of the Volari Empire, a city of shining towers and bridges that seemed to float in the air. The light of two suns glowed across the horizon, casting the city in golden and violet colors. Ethan had seen many worlds in his years as a traveler and explorer, but nothing had ever looked like this. It was majestic and otherworldly, yet full of life. His mission was clear. He had been chosen as the first human ambassador to step onto Volari soil. Earth had recently made contact with this advanced civilization, and the Volari had invited a representative to begin peaceful talks. Ethan was honored but also nervous. He was a simple man, raised on Earth in a family of teachers. He had training, yes, but he was not a great warrior or a politician. He wondered why he had been chosen instead of others with more experience. As he walked down the ramp, a group of Volari guards stood in formation. They were tall and elegant, their skin a pale silver tone that shimmered under the suns. Each wore armor that gleamed like crystal and carried long ceremonial spears. Their eyes were bright, reflecting wisdom but also suspicion. Ethan could feel their gaze following his every move. At the center of the group stood someone different. She was dressed in a flowing gown of deep blue and gold, with a crown-like circlet resting on her brow. Her eyes were not cold like the guards. They were curious, shining with an intensity that made Ethan pause for a moment. She was beautiful in an alien way, graceful yet commanding. This was Princess Lyra, heir to the Volari throne. Ethan bowed politely as he had been instructed, though he worried whether he had done it correctly according to their customs. Lyra stepped forward, her movements calm but firm. "You are Ethan Cole of Earth," she said, her voice clear but carrying a musical tone. "Yes, Your Highness," Ethan replied. He kept his tone respectful, his hands steady at his sides. "I come in peace to learn from your people and to share knowledge from my own world." Lyra tilted her head slightly, as if studying not only his words but the way he carried himself. For a long moment she did not speak. Ethan felt the silence stretch, heavy under the stares of the guards. Finally, Lyra's lips curved into the faintest smile. "You are different than I expected." Ethan's eyebrows lifted. "In what way?" "You are simple in your manner, direct, not like our envoys who speak with layers of formality. I find it refreshing." Ethan let out a quiet breath of relief. Perhaps he had not ruined the first impression after all. The princess turned gracefully and gestured for him to follow. "Come, the council waits to hear your words. But before that, I wish to speak with you alone." The guards exchanged uneasy glances but did not question her. Ethan hesitated but stepped forward, following her through an arched doorway that led into a grand hall. The walls shimmered with living light, patterns moving as though the building itself breathed. He could hear the faint hum of alien energy flowing through the air. They stopped in a smaller chamber, quieter and more intimate. The floor was covered in woven fabric that seemed to shift colors under the sun's glow. Lyra faced him directly now, her eyes searching his face. "I must ask you something," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "Of course." Her voice lowered, but her words carried a weight that struck him like thunder. "Show me how to be your wife, human." Ethan froze. He wondered if he had misunderstood her words, but her expression told him she meant them exactly. His heart raced. This was not in any briefing, not in any manual on diplomacy. "Pardon me, Your Highness," he managed at last. "Did I hear you correctly?" "Yes," she said with calm certainty. "I ask you to show me how to be your wife. A partner to you as humans understand it." Ethan tried to steady his breathing. This was the heir to a powerful alien empire, a princess of an advanced race, and she was asking him, a man from Earth, a newcomer in her world, to guide her in something so personal. "Why would you ask this of me?" Ethan said carefully. Lyra's gaze did not falter. "Because I have studied humans. I have seen your history, your struggles, and your bonds. You are not like us. You do not live only by tradition and power. You form connections of heart. You protect each other not because of duty, but because of choice. I wish to understand this. I wish to live it." Ethan swallowed hard. "That is a very serious request." "I know," Lyra said simply, "but I'm not asking out of whim. I am the heir to my people. They expect me to marry for alliance or politics. But I do not wish for that. I wish for something real. When I look at you, Ethan Cole, I see the possibility of such a bond. Her words were steady, but there was a softness in her eyes that revealed sincerity. Ethan was torn. Part of him wanted to laugh at the absurdity of the moment. Another part wanted to run, to avoid the weight of what she asked. But deep inside, he felt the truth of her words. Humans did value choice, loyalty, and heart in ways that might be strange to others. Perhaps she had seen something in him that he himself had overlooked. Still, he could not simply agree. "Your Highness, I am honored, truly, but I am just one man sent here as a guest. I do not know your customs. I do not even know what it means to be a husband in your world, much less for me to teach you about being a wife." Lyra's lips curved again in that faint smile. "That is why I ask. You will show me not by words of diplomacy, but by living. Walk with me, speak with me, share with me. Let me see through your eyes. In return, I will show you my world. Together, we may find a bridge between us." Her voice carried no force of command, only calm determination. Ethan's thoughts raced. If he refused, would he insult her? Would it damage the fragile ties between Earth and the Volari? Yet if he accepted, what would it mean for him? For his mission? For a long moment he stood silent. Then he said slowly, "If you truly wish to learn, then I will not refuse to share what it means to me. But understand, I am not a prince or a king. I am just Ethan." Lyra's eyes softened. "That is exactly why I chose you." At that moment, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hall. A Volari advisor entered, bowing deeply to the princess. "Your Highness, the council awaits." Lyra inclined her head but kept her gaze on Ethan. "This is only the beginning. Remember my words." Ethan followed as they returned to the grand chamber, his mind heavy with questions. He had come here to build peace between worlds. Now he carried something far more personal, a request from an alien princess that could change both their lives forever. And deep down, though he would not admit it yet, a small spark of curiosity stirred within him. What if her strange request was not madness, but the start of something that could unite not only two hearts, but two civilizations? Ethan Cole woke the next morning in the guest chambers the Volari had prepared for him. The walls shimmered faintly with flowing light, shifting like soft water, and the air carried a sweet, calming fragrance. It was unlike any place he had ever stayed. The bed was made of some kind of woven material that adjusted to his weight, holding him gently as if the room itself wanted to take care of him. Yet, despite the comfort, Ethan's mind had not rested well. He kept hearing the words Princess Lyra had spoken the day before. "Show me how to be your wife, human." The thought was so strange, so unexpected, that he kept turning it over in his head. Was it really a serious proposal? Or had she spoken out of curiosity like a scientist asking for an experiment? Either way, it weighed heavily on him. He was here to represent Earth, to speak for peace, not to be pulled into the personal life of a royal princess. But there was no denying the honesty he had seen in her eyes. A soft chime sounded at the door. Ethan rose, adjusting his plain uniform, and the door slid open. To his surprise, Princess Lyra herself stood there, dressed not in her regal gown but in a simpler outfit of pale green fabric. Her crown was gone, replaced by a delicate braid of silver hair falling over her shoulder. "Good morning." "Ethan Cole," she said with a calm smile. "Your Highness," Ethan replied quickly, bowing slightly. She raised a hand. "When it is just the two of us, you may call me Lyra. I would like that." Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "All right. Lyra, how can I help you this morning?" Lyra stepped into the room, her eyes full of determination. "I wish to begin. Yesterday I asked you something and you did not refuse me. So today you must show me what it means to live as humans live. Show me the ways of a wife so that I may understand." Ethan blinked, unsure how to even start. That is, not something I can explain with a single lesson. On Earth, being a wife or a husband is about sharing life together. It is about small things as much as big things. Cooking, laughing, supporting each other, facing problems side by side. Lyra tilted her head, clearly intrigued. "Then I will learn these small things." "Show me." And so began one of the strangest mornings of Ethan's life. Lyra insisted on joining him for breakfast, even though the Volari Palace had already prepared a meal fit for royalty. Ethan tried to explain that on Earth meals were often simple, sometimes even cooked at home. Lyra looked at him with curiosity. "You mean you make the food yourself?" she asked. "Yes," Ethan said with a shrug. "Back home, my mother used to say cooking for someone was a way of showing care. It means effort, not just taste," Lyra nodded thoughtfully. "Then I will cook," Ethan almost laughed. The idea of an alien princess cooking was beyond belief. But before he could protest, Lyra ordered the servants to bring her raw ingredients from the palace kitchen. Strange fruits and grains, colorful and glowing faintly, were laid out before them. Lyra picked one up, examined it closely, then looked at Ethan. "What now?" Ethan chuckled nervously. "Well, usually you prepare the food by cutting, mixing, and heating it." He searched for the simplest explanation possible. Lyra, proud and determined, picked up a knife-like tool. She tried to slice one of the glowing fruits, but her cut was so forceful that the fruit burst into sparkling juice, spraying across the table. Ethan laughed before he could stop himself. Lyra frowned, clearly embarrassed. "I failed." No, Ethan said quickly, trying to calm her. "That happens to everyone. Cooking isn't about perfection. It's about trying, about learning together. Here, let me show you." He guided her hand gently, showing her how to cut softly instead of pressing too hard. This time the fruit split neatly into halves. Lyra's eyes lit with delight. "I see," she said softly. "It is not only the result, but the care in the action." They continued together, and though the dish they made was uneven and odd in flavor, Lyra tasted it proudly. "Strange," she said after swallowing, "but I like it. It is ours." Ethan smiled despite himself. Over the next days, Lyra followed Ethan wherever he went. She asked endless questions about human families, human homes, human jokes, and even human holidays. At first, Ethan tried to answer carefully, but her curiosity was endless, and slowly he began to relax. One evening, she insisted on trying to tell a human joke. She stood tall and serious, then said, "Why does the human cross the water? To reach the same place, but wetter." Ethan laughed so hard he nearly dropped his cup. Lyra's eyes widened, then she smiled proudly. "I succeeded. That is humor, yes?" "Close enough," Ethan said between chuckles. Moments like this made him forget the tension around them. Yet tension always returned. In the royal court, whispers spread quickly. Many nobles and warriors disapproved of Lyra spending so much time with the human ambassador. They saw Ethan as unworthy, a simple man who lacked the strength or honor of their kind. Advisors approached Lyra, urging her to remember her duty to the throne. But Lyra stood firm. "I am learning from him. I will not be ordered away." For Ethan, the stares and murmurs grew heavier. Guards watched him closely. Some muttered insults in their tongue when he passed, though Lyra always silenced them with a glance. He began to wonder if this lesson she wanted was putting them both in danger. One night, as they walked through the palace gardens, Ethan spoke honestly. "Lyra, why are you doing this? Your people don't seem happy about it." "I don't want to cause trouble for you." Lyra stopped among the glowing flowers, turning to face him. "Because, Ethan, I do not want a life written only by duty. I want a bond chosen freely as humans choose. My people think strength is only in power and tradition, but I have seen another kind of strength in you, in kindness, in patience, in laughter. I want to know that strength, and I want to share it." Her words struck Ethan deeply. He realized this was not just curiosity. It was a search for something real, something her world did not give her. Still, he shook his head. "I'm not a prince, Lyra. I'm not anyone important." "I don't know if I can give you what you're looking for." Lyra's eyes softened. "Perhaps that is why I chose you. Because you are not weighed down by titles. You are simply Ethan. That is what makes you strong." Ethan had no answer, but not everyone agreed with her. One evening, as Ethan walked alone through the palace corridors, 2 Valeri warriors stepped into his path. Their armor glowed faintly and their tall frames loomed over him. "You do not belong here, human," one of them said coldly. "The princess dishonors herself by wasting time on you." Ethan stood tall, though his heart pounded. "I am here by her choice, not mine. If you have a problem, take it to her," the warrior sneered. "If not for her protection, you would not last a day among us." Before they could continue, Lyra appeared, her voice sharp as steel. "Enough." The warriors bowed reluctantly and withdrew. Lyra turned to Ethan, her eyes blazing with anger, not at him but at her people. "They will not touch you while I stand with you." "Do not fear." Ethan nodded slowly. In that moment, he understood how serious she was. She was risking her position, her reputation, even her safety for him. And though he did not say it aloud, part of him felt the stir of something unexpected, a sense of loyalty and perhaps even admiration for the alien princess who wanted to learn from him. By the end of that week, Ethan realized his mission had changed. He was not only an ambassador for Earth, He was now caught between two worlds, one of duty and politics, and one of heart and choice. Lyra had asked him to show her what it meant to be a wife, but in truth she was teaching him too, about courage, about standing against tradition, and about the possibility that two very different souls could find common ground. And though the path ahead was uncertain, Ethan knew one thing with certainty. His life would never be the same again. The days following Ethan's strange new bond with Princess Lyra were uneasy. Everywhere he went in the palace, he felt the eyes of the Volari on him. Some were curious, others openly suspicious, and a few were hostile. Word had spread quickly that the alien princess was spending much of her time with a human ambassador. For a proud people like the Volari, who lived by tradition and measured worth through trials and strength, it was a scandal. One evening, as the two suns set over the shining towers, Ethan was summoned before the High Council. The great chamber was vast, its ceiling glowing like a night sky full of stars, though they were artificial lights woven into the stone. 12 council members sat in high seats, their expressions stern. Lyra sat slightly apart, her eyes calm but watchful. Ethan stood at the center, feeling small before their gaze. He had faced many strange worlds, but never had he felt so judged. The eldest counselor, a tall man named Counselor Varen, spoke first. Ethan Cole of Earth, you are a guest among us, but rumors spread that our heir, Princess Lyra, has chosen you for something beyond diplomacy. This cannot go untested. Among the Volari, no one is accepted without proving their honor. Ethan frowned slightly. And how do you expect me to prove that? Varen's voice was cold. Through the trials of honor. If you wish to walk beside our princess, if you wish even to be respected among our people, you must face the challenges as we all do. Pass and you will earn a place in our eyes. Fail and you will leave in shame. A murmur ran through the chamber. Lyra rose, her voice sharp. This is unfair. Ethan is not Volari. He is human. Why must he be forced into our trials? Another counselor answered, because he seeks to share his life with our heir. If he cannot face our way, he cannot claim her side. Lyra looked at Ethan, her face full of worry. Ethan, however, stood straighter. His heart pounded, but he spoke firmly. If this is what I must do, then I will face it. I will not run, Lyra whispered. Ethan? He gave her a small smile. I came here to build peace, Lyra. Maybe this is the only way they will hear me. The counselor nodded. The trials begin at dawn. The next morning, Ethan stood in an open arena outside the city. The ground was made of smooth stone, the walls high with thousands of Volari gathered to watch. Their voices echoed like a sea of whispers. Lyra stood near the front, her hands clasped tightly together, her face unreadable but her eyes locked on Ethan. A herald's voice rang out. First trial, the trial of strength. From a gate at the far end of the arena, a massive creature emerged. It was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. Four-legged, armored with plates of shining crystal and eyes glowing red. Its roar shook the air. Ethan swallowed hard. He had no weapon, only his wits. The creature charged. Most Volari warriors would have met it head-on, relying on their powerful bodies and trained skill. But Ethan was human. He darted to the side, rolling across the ground, and the beast smashed into the wall instead. Dust and fragments flew. The crowd gasped. Ethan remembered his training on Earth, never to fight strength with strength when you were weaker. He moved quickly, using the arena's pillars for cover. Each time the creature charged, Ethan dodged, letting it crash into stone, tiring itself. Finally, when the beast slowed, Ethan noticed a softer spot under its plated neck. With all his courage, he grabbed a broken shard of stone and leapt, driving it into the weak point. The beast roared, then collapsed. The arena fell silent, then erupted in cheers. Ethan stood, panting but alive. Lyra's lips curved into the smallest, proudest smile. The herald raised his staff. Second trial, the trial of wisdom. The arena floor shifted, revealing a vast labyrinth of glowing walls. Ethan was guided inside, the gates closing behind him. The challenge was simple: find the way out. But the labyrinth was full of traps and puzzles designed to confuse the mind. Ethan walked carefully, studying the glowing symbols on the walls. At one corner he found two doors, each marked with alien runes. A voice echoed, "One path leads to freedom, the other to doom. Choose." Ethan frowned. He did not know their language fully, but he remembered something Lyra had once explained during their conversations. Certain Valari symbols had double meanings, one for power, one for deception. Looking closely, he realized one rune was drawn slightly wrong. It was a trick. He chose the other door. Again and again, the labyrinth tested him, with shifting paths, false lights, and riddles. Each time Ethan stopped, thought carefully, and remembered lessons not of war but of teaching, of problem-solving. Hours passed, but finally he emerged into the sunlight. The crowd gasped again. Few outsiders had ever passed the trial of wisdom. The herald's voice rang once more. Final trial, the trial of loyalty. Ethan frowned, not sure what to expect. Then he saw Lyra being led into the arena. Chains of light wrapped around her wrists, though she did not resist. Counselor Varan's voice thundered. Here is the choice. Prove your loyalty to us or to her. If you free the princess, you defy our counsel. If you leave her, you prove your loyalty to our order. Choose, human. The crowd grew tense. All eyes turned to Ethan. Ethan's heart pounded. They wanted to test him, to see if he would abandon Lyra for their approval. But Ethan remembered her words, her trust in him, her courage in standing against tradition. He could not betray that. Without hesitation, he walked forward and placed his hands on the glowing chains. They burned with strange energy, but he pulled with all his strength. The chains resisted, then shattered into light. Lyra stepped free, eyes wide with emotion. Ethan turned to the council, his voice firm. You wanted to test my loyalty? Then know this, my loyalty is not bought by fear or command. It is given freely to those I trust, and I trust her. The arena was silent. Even the crowd seemed stunned. Finally, one counselor rose. His voice carried both awe and reluctance. Perhaps there is honor in this human after all. Lyra stood beside Ethan, lifting her head high. Now you see what I saw. That night, as the sun set once more, Ethan and Lyra walked together through the quiet gardens. The air was filled with soft glowing insects that drifted like living lanterns. Ethan sighed, rubbing his sore arms. I'm not sure how I made it through that. Lyra looked at him with a gentle smile. Not by strength, not by cunning alone, but by heart. That is why you succeeded. Ethan shook his head. But I may have made enemies in the council. They didn't look pleased. They never are, Lyra replied softly. But today you showed them something they could not ignore. And you showed me something as well. What's that? That you are exactly the kind of partner I hoped for. Not perfect, not bound by duty, but guided by choice. That is what makes you human. Ethan met her eyes. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence was filled only by the hum of alien life around them. Ethan did not know what the future held, but he knew one thing. Whatever came next, he and Lyra would face it together. And far above, unseen in the night sky, new threats were already moving toward the Valari world. Ethan had expected the days after the trials of honor to be calmer, but the peace was short-lived. The Valari, despite witnessing his courage, still carried whispers of doubt about a human being beside the princess. Yet none of that compared to the alarm that shook the royal palace one morning. The air vibrated with tension as Lyra and Ethan were summoned to the command center, a vast chamber filled with holographic star maps and glowing control panels. Valari officers moved with precision, their faces serious. On the central display floated a cluster of approaching ships, dark, angular, and menacing. Lyra's eyes widened. Ethan, these are not Valari. They are the fleet of the Krillian Empire. They have been expanding, taking worlds without warning. Ethan leaned forward, studying the maps. How far are they from your planet? 1 standard day, said a commander. If we do not act quickly, they will reach the capital in less than 18 hours. The room was tense. Even seasoned officers murmured nervously. The Valari were strong, but the Krillians were known for their cunning tactics and merciless attacks. Ethan's mind raced. He had faced danger before, but this was different. It was not a single creature or a trial. It was an entire empire threatening a civilization that had welcomed him. Lyra turned to him, her expression calm, yet determined. Ethan, what do we do? Our military strategies rely on precision, but they cannot predict the unpredictable. Ethan took a deep breath. He had studied history, not only of Earth, but of the stars. Many victories were not won by strength alone, but by understanding, strategy, and alliances. We need a plan that uses both strength and surprise, he said. We cannot simply meet them head-on, but we can divide them, confuse them, and target the weak points in their formation. A senior officer frowned. You would have us risk thousands of lives based on... Human ideas. Lyra stepped forward. Ethan is not just a human. He is the one I trust. If we listen to him, we may have a chance. And I will not stand idle while my people face destruction. The room fell silent. For the first time, Valari officers saw the princess's resolve. Finally, the commander nodded. Very well. We follow your strategy. Ethan and Lyra spent hours planning. Ethan suggested splitting their fleets into small mobile units, using stealth ships to disrupt the Krillians' communications. He also recommended sending emissaries to neighboring star systems asking for alliances. His plan relied on more than firepower. It relied on cooperation, timing, and trust. Lyra observed closely, asking questions, learning from his explanations. So you rely not only on fighting but on knowing your enemy and finding strength and unity, she said. Yes, Ethan replied. A strong army alone can win battles, but a connected force can win wars. And people will fight harder when they feel their choices matter. She nodded thoughtfully. I will help you make them feel that choice. Together we can inspire them. The Krillian ships appeared on the horizon like dark storm clouds. The Valari fleet moved into formation, but Ethan noticed some commanders hesitated, unsure of his plan. Lyra stood on the observation deck, holding Ethan's hand tightly. Trust yourself, Ethan. They need your guidance as much as your courage. Ethan swallowed and stepped forward to address the fleet. Commanders of the Valari, he began, his voice steady. I am not one of you, and I do not have your training. But I have studied how civilizations survive. We cannot meet them with only strength. We must be smart, coordinated, and united. Follow my instructions, and together we will defend this world. Some commanders frowned, others nodded hesitantly. Lyra squeezed his hand. I believe in you, she whispered. The battle began at dawn. The Krillian ships moved with speed and aggression. Valari ships followed Ethan's instructions, splitting into smaller units. Some engaged the enemy directly, while others used stealth technology to disable the Krillians' engines and communications. Ethan stayed on the command bridge, coordinating the movements, his mind racing. He watched the screens as ships vanished and reappeared, as the Krillians tried to outmaneuver them. Every decision had to be perfect, yet every mistake could be catastrophic. Lyra watched beside him, her hand never leaving his. She gave orders with clarity, using her authority to support his strategy. Now, redirect the left flank to circle behind them, she commanded. The Krillians were surprised by the unconventional tactics. Ships collided, formations broke, and their commanders struggled to regroup. The Valari, inspired by Ethan and Lyra's confidence, fought with renewed vigor. Ethan noticed one Krillian flagship attempting to break through the center. Lyra, we need to act now. She nodded. Together, they coordinated a daring maneuver. Small Valari vessels attacked from multiple angles, drawing the flagship into a trap. Ethan held his breath as they executed the plan. The flagship was disabled, its engines sparking and smoke trailing into space. The fleet erupted in cheers. One by one, the Krillian ships retreated, realizing they had underestimated the Valari strategy and the human who guided it. After the battle, the capital celebrated. The Krillians had been repelled and the Valari had survived. Yet Ethan and Lyra knew the victory was more than military. It proved that humanity's values, cooperation, creativity, and trust could succeed even among an advanced alien civilization. Lyra found Ethan in the gardens that evening, surrounded by the soft glow of alien plants. You were remarkable today, she said, her eyes shining. Not because of strength, but because of your mind, your choices, and your courage. Ethan smiled wearily. I could not have done it without you. You trusted me, even when others doubted. That made all the difference. Lyra reached out and held his hand. And you have changed my people. They saw a human lead and they learned to see beyond their traditions. Perhaps this is the beginning of something new. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had come to this world as a visitor, but now he realized he was part of its future, and not just its future. He was part of Lyra's life, her bond, her choice. The High Council summoned them once more, this time not to challenge, but to recognize. Counselor Varen stepped forward, his voice carrying both respect and relief. Ethan Cole of Earth, today you have not only defended our world but proven your wisdom and loyalty. You are not Valari by birth, yet you have earned our trust. Princess Lyra, you may walk with him openly, for the people now see that your choice is honorable. Lyra's eyes softened with gratitude. She took Ethan's hand and spoke to the council. We are different, yes, but our hearts can guide us, and together we can face any threat. Let this day be remembered not for the battle, but for the unity it has shown." The council nodded, and for the first time, Ethan felt the warmth of acceptance from a people so alien and proud. That night, Ethan and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The suns had set, leaving a sky filled with faint stars and shimmering lights. "I never thought I would fight a war on an alien world," Ethan said, still catching his breath. Lyra smiled softly. "And I never thought I would learn how to trust a human so completely. You showed me what courage and loyalty truly mean." Ethan looked at her, the gentle glow of the city reflecting in her eyes. "Lyra, I don't know what the future holds, but I know this: I want to face it with you." Lyra stepped closer. "And I with you. You have shown me not only how humans live, but how they love and how they choose. That is more than any trial or battle could teach me." Together they watched the stars, knowing that peace had returned for now, but also that new challenges would come. Yet whatever awaited them, they would face it side by side. A human and an alien princess united not by duty, but by choice and trust, and far beyond the horizon, the Krillians retreated wiser and wary, having learned that courage and heart could be just as dangerous as fleets and weapons. Peace had finally returned to the Valari Empire. The Krillians had retreated, their forces weakened and wary, leaving the planet safe once more. The capital city shone in the soft light of its twin suns, streets alive with celebration, music, and laughter. Humans and Valari alike marveled at the resilience and courage that had saved the world. Ethan Cole stood on a balcony of the palace, gazing at the crowd below. Flags of the Valari fluttered alongside banners sent by nearby allies who had answered the call for help. He could hardly believe it. Just days ago he had been a guest, uncertain and cautious, and now he was part of a history that would be remembered for generations. Lyra stepped beside him, her hand brushing against his. "It is beautiful," she said softly. "But not just the city, Ethan, the people, the unity, they have changed. You changed them." Ethan smiled, though he felt a weight in his chest. "I didn't do it alone. You stood with me. You gave me courage when I needed it most. Without you, none of this would have happened." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes shining. "I also learned from you. I saw how a human thinks, how they trust, how they lead without expecting obedience. You showed me that strength comes not only from tradition or power, but from heart." Ethan's smile widened. "And you showed me the courage to step into a world that was completely unknown to me. I think we both learned something important." They stood in silence for a moment, enjoying the calm after the storm. Then Lyra spoke again, the faintest smile playing on her lips. "Ethan, do you remember what you said when I first asked you to show me how to be your wife?" Ethan blinked. Yes. I said I would try, but I warned you I was not perfect." Lyra's gaze softened. "And now, after all we have faced, after battles and trials, after fear and doubt, I ask again. Show me, not just in words, but in life. Show me how to be your wife, human." Ethan took a deep breath. He looked out over the city, then back at Lyra. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he took her hands in his, feeling the warmth and strength in her touch. "Lyra," he said slowly, "being a wife, or a husband, is not about perfection. It is not about power or ceremony or even titles. It is about walking side by side, sharing life, facing challenges together, and protecting each other's dreams. If you are willing to do that, to learn with me as I learn with you, then I will gladly show you what it means." Lyra's eyes glistened, and a small laugh escaped her lips, full of relief and joy. That is all I needed to hear. In the following days, preparations for a union between Ethan and Lyra began. It was unlike any ceremony the Valari had ever seen. Instead of rigid tradition, it combined the elegance of Valari culture with the simplicity of human rituals. Holographic banners displayed the history of both worlds, and the gardens of the palace were filled with glowing flowers from distant planets. Ethan watched as Lyra practiced greetings and gestures, laughing as she sometimes exaggerated human customs in ways that were adorable and slightly awkward. She insisted on cooking a small meal for him to taste, and though it was not perfect, he praised her effort warmly. "You are learning quickly," he said with a smile. Lyra beamed. "I want to learn everything, not just about being your wife, but about living with you, sharing life with you, and understanding your world." You already understand more than you think, Ethan replied, taking her hand. You understand the heart of it. On the day of the ceremony, thousands of Volari gathered in the Grand Plaza. Humans who had arrived as observers or allies watched from a distance. The city was alive with excitement and curiosity. It was not only a union of two individuals, but a symbol of unity between civilizations. Lyra walked beside Ethan, her gown shimmering like the night sky, her crown resting lightly upon her head. Ethan wore simple clothing, as was customary on Earth, but he carried himself with quiet confidence. He felt the weight of every eye on them, every whisper of astonishment and approval. The High Council stood ready, their expressions a mix of pride and solemnity. Councillor Varen stepped forward, his voice echoing through the plaza. Today we witness something extraordinary. Not a union of politics, not a union of convenience, but a union of choice, courage, and trust. Ethan Cole of Earth, Princess Lyra of Volari. This day marks not only your bond, but the bond of two worlds. Lyra turned to Ethan, her hands clasped in his. Are you ready? She asked softly. Ethan nodded. I am ready. With you, I am ready for anything. The ceremony was simple yet profound. Lyra spoke vows in the Volari language, pledging to share life, joy, and challenges with Ethan. He replied in Earth's language, promising to protect, support, and cherish her, just as she had inspired him to do. As they exchanged rings, crafted from metals found on both Earth and Volari worlds, the crowd erupted in cheers. It was a sound of celebration, not only for the couple but for the promise of understanding, compassion, and unity that they represented. Lyra rested her head on Ethan's shoulder, her voice soft. I am ready to learn everything, to live with you not as a princess or a human ambassador but as your partner. Ethan held her close, and I am ready to learn from you, not just how to be a husband but how to be a better man because of you. After the ceremony, Ethan and Lyra walked through the gardens, now filled with flowers that glowed gently in the evening light. Children of both worlds played together, laughing as they chased glowing insects, and elders spoke quietly of hope and peace. Lyra stopped and looked at Ethan. Do you remember when I first asked you to show me how to be your wife? Ethan smiled. I do. And now I realize it was never just about teaching you. It was about discovering together. About understanding that living together as partners is about choices, trust, and courage. Lyra nodded. Exactly. And that is how we will move forward. Together. Ethan took her hand, feeling the bond between them stronger than ever. He realized that humanity had more to offer than survival or technology. It had empathy, creativity, and the courage to love across worlds. And Lyra, with her curiosity, bravery, and heart, had shown him that even a powerful alien civilization could learn from humans. That night, the city celebrated with music and lights. Fires floated in the sky and the people danced, rejoicing in the union that had bridged worlds. Ethan and Lyra stood on a balcony, watching the celebration unfold. I never thought I would be part of something like this, Ethan said, and I never thought I would find someone from another world who could teach me what my heart already knew. Lyra replied. They laughed softly, and in that laughter, the weight of the past battles, the trials and the doubts fell away. Only the future remained, uncertain, full of challenges, but filled with promise. Ethan turned to Lyra. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Not as a human and a princess, but as partners, as equals. Lyra smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. Together always. Above them, the stars sparkled, some from their own galaxy, others from distant worlds. And in that light, two civilizations watched a union of hearts, a symbol of hope, and the beginning of a future shaped not by power or fear, but by trust, love, and courage. For Ethan and Lyra, it was not just the beginning of a marriage, it was the beginning of a new era, one where humans and Volari, working together, could face any challenge, reach any world, and share a life defined by choice, respect, and heart. And as the twin suns set once more, casting their golden and violet glow over the city, Ethan realized that he had truly found a home, not just on an alien planet, but in the heart of someone who had chosen him freely, and whom he had chosen freely in return. The story of Ethan and Lyra, of Earth and Volari, would be told for generations, a reminder that courage, love, and unity could overcome any challenge. and that the heart was stronger than any weapon, stronger than any tradition, and stronger than fear. They walked back into the palace, hand in hand, ready to face the future, together.